Hi guys, I thought I'll make a video about this. I usually don't do videos like that, but I thought it's kind of like, I guess just makes sense for this one time. Reason being, because I was kind of interested in the data behind it. Like I wanted to see like how the progress went and all that stuff. A couple of you people probably have even seen my graphics that I put together, but you've only really seen the old version of it. I managed to actually update it, and I found even more data, which kind of revealed a little bit of an issue, sort of like an inconsistency in the data. And hence I tried to contact Starbreeze about it, and well, essentially I didn't publish it in the end. So we went into a bit of a ruckus and stuff. There was a bit of back and forth, but essentially they wanted me to not post it because, well, we have this blog post now that basically sums up everything, or almost everything, and they basically explain exactly the questions that I was asking. So they kind of like had to so much not tell me that this is going to be a thing, but kind of like still had to sort of, I think I kind of pressured them into actually making a blog post to this. I'm not sure if they would have gone for it. Maybe they would have anyways, but there's a good chance that they might not have potentially like properly revealed everything if it wasn't for me being an asshole and actually pressuring them a little bit. Who knows? Just all speculation. Essentially, everything from my side is going to be speculation. I do have the facts of some of the numbers, and my graphics is kind of that accurate to what they are showing here in the blog post anyways, and we'll get to that later. But I will essentially try to explain a little bit why some numbers are like that, since I have a couple hundred hours. Well, I have over 1,000 hours in this game already. I sort of like try to speed through heists, and I get roughly the gist of how things work in Payday, what's optimal, what's suboptimal, and like how people are sort of reacting to it. I can't be completely wrong of my stuff that I'm speculating into this, but I'll try to get over my opinion about like my things are like that. Anyways, we'll first go through the blog post, and then we'll go through the data that I myself collected, so we have a bit of comparison. They hit it the easy way probably, since they have the data on the servers probably somewhere. In my case, I actually had to watch a couple hundred streams. I don't know how many it was. It was probably roughly 100 or something, and like just check how the progress bar increased for those people who had the UI up. So thanks a lot for all of the streamers who had the UI up, who streamed a bunch of different times. There are gaps in there, but we'll get to that later. Without further ado, let's get ahead and just check through the blog post. I'm going to ignore the top part because that's just describing the event a little bit, that they're kind of like miscalculating stuff eventually. Essentially, their idea was that we are able to unlock, based on the numbers of players, 2 masks, with the other 2 masks being at roughly 50-ish%. That was a miscalculation on their end, and it turned out to be a slightly different. Essentially, we only were able to unlock 1 mask, and one of which being at, I think, 85%-ish at the end, the others being at 50-ish%. However, that is still wrong, because remember, they have thrown in a double cash event, and I'm not sure if that was planned. That is just something I feel like was probably not planned. Because it's kind of rough to calculate how many people are going to turn up on the weekends, including that double cash and whatsoever. I think it would have just been too overkill in terms of calculations, including this kind of double cash stuff into it as well. If you get what I mean, like, if they actually planned to go with the double cash on the weekends, regardless of how it looked like, because I'm still sure they kind of didn't, they would have to have taken that into account with all the player numbers that they had, that we are able to unlock 2 masks, plus the other 2 being at 50%. And even with the double cash, we're still kind of far off from that. We'll see that later why. But that's kind of like this part explained here. They're just going over like what went well. They expected a bit more people. Hey, we unlocked at least 1 mask. I don't think that is actually what went well. I think that is what went wrong, but I guess okay, if they're happy with it, sure. I guess they're just happy that we at least managed to unlock 1 mask, is my assumption here. But anyways, not really, in short, like not really too much went well. Sure, we were like getting more efficient. For instance, in our case, I was with the Cut Ice Cartons gang, and we had a rough like average of 7-ish minutes for a stealth run and like 6-ish minutes for a loud run on Touch the Sky. So we managed to optimize the stealth run from like 7-ish minutes down all the way to roughly 4 minutes. So we saved like close to 50% rate. So in terms of efficiency, I guess this one is kind of like probably on point. And I assume the same kind of thing happened on the other heists. We had a couple ideas that probably we thought might have happened. For instance, Vice was pinging me a couple times on Rock the Cradle, where they managed to get sub 4 minutes, which is pretty impressive, to be honest. All loot, that is. So yeah, I think that one is kind of correct. And this one seems weird a bit. They kind of like, the analytics predicted of what they had thought feels just wrong to me. If they were assuming that we are able to unlock 2 masks, but we didn't, and then they also expected the other 2 to be at a roughly 50%, which is true, but only because of the double cash, it feels a wrong statement. So I think, in my opinion, the only thing that went well is that more players joined the game. That is solely the only thing. In my opinion, I guess it's a bit early to say that, but the Mask Mania event as a whole, on paper, looked interesting, but was kind of really bad. Reason being, you know, we can unlock these 4 masks early, but the point is, we can unlock them anyways. They're not locked behind this event from happening again or something. They could have done this event again, which would have been, in my opinion, a better idea than locking the masks now behind hardcore challenges, because what is the point of running this event if we are able to unlock these masks anyways? And another point being, we don't even have the masks that we managed to unlock yet. We still have to wait for this to be in the game. So I just don't get really the point from this Mask Mania event, besides the fact to actually get more people back into the game. If they had done an even better Mask Mania event, in my opinion, they could have made it so that the players actually stick to the game for longer. My assumption is they really just played this Mask Mania event a little bit and they were like, fuck this, it's the same 2 heists over and over, I'm out of here. I think if they completely changed the event a little bit in a sense of like, take the Piggy event, for instance. That's in my opinion the best comparison to it. If you take that, it changed how a single heist that we already had in the game worked. You got buffs. You had this golden piggy bank that you had to throw your money bags into. You had to use a couple weapons to increase your potency of getting bags that you can throw into the piggy bank to get those buffs, which completely kind of changed how you approach a heist. On top of that, you gained more experience points to level up faster. You gained more money to buy more stuff faster. Like, all of that stuff completely sort of changed a couple of these heists, how you're supposed to interact with them. You could even stay for longer, take counterfeit for instance. You could just keep cooking bags. I think it was roughly like 21 or something that you had to get a whole infamy level in one heist in about an hour, give or take, and not even on the highest difficulty because of that event. And that is what I feel like a well-executed event, this piggy bank event. That is what brings people to this game, be like, hey, this is actually really cool, now I can like level up faster, I get all that stuff quicker. I should definitely play this event now because it's cool, right? Here, we don't really have an incentive besides the mask, which we don't even have yet. So it's kind of like, there's nothing that really went well with this event, in my opinion, besides the fact that we got a couple people back, but they probably expected more than we actually got, or something. What went wrong is like basically everything. What they have explained, however, is, well, first of all, they've launched the event even though the core people have been on vacations, which, in my opinion, I do not understand why you would do that. You don't launch something like this, which, I mean, in my opinion, is kind of like big enough to potentially go wrong and annoy a bunch of people. And hey, it did go wrong and annoyed a bunch of people. So I don't know why you would launch such an event without having the core people who organized this event to potentially fix it like that. I mean, they were still quick, which is good. Regardless, though, I just wouldn't launch such an event. Besides, I just wouldn't launch it with such a concept in mind that we had now. Then, yeah, they kind of explained that there was no in-game pop-up or anything that kind of showcased the event, which in my opinion is an absolute must-have because people are not regularly checking social media to figure out, hey, is there something going on with this game? They are probably just playing the game casually, and it would be nice if there's suddenly like one day, hey, oh, hello there's by the way Mask Mania event now, so check this out. Could be as simple as a link to this webpage right here. Well, not this one, because this is the blog post, but the Mask Mania event webpage to kind of like, hey, this is how this event works. If they didn't want to like incorporate it as a pop-up in the game itself. Would have probably been easy enough to quickly make a UI pop-up and explain it real quick. Since there really isn't much to explain. If you want that mask, play these 2 heists, that's it. And, well, earn as much cash as you can. But yeah, that is what they stated. They missed that, so that's good. Then they didn't set out the rules properly. In short, this is like they could have done the event differently. So they kind of confirm that the event, how they was executed, wasn't really good. So that's cool too. Then they didn't show their numbers. They only showed percentages. That was immediately explained about, but was communicated quickly enough. In my opinion, the whole progress bar should have just been money instead of percent. People want numbers, so there's that. Then the data hiccups. Those we will get into a bit later, so I'll skip over this. And yeah, this is kind of like... This is kind of like my point that I just mentioned. This makes this Mask Mania event a bit pointless. Because you can't just get the masks with true challenges later on anyways. And this one... What is this again? We didn't say what heists to play based on any potential, but by heist themes, meaning people choose their favorites when they weren't trying for the event. Yeah, this is once again just because they haven't really communicated in the game, so this point kind of, in my opinion. I don't think this would have mattered much. I guess tying masks to heists is anyways stupid because you will need a way greater quantity than just 2 heists to make this interesting. Because running the same 2 heists, in most cases, running just a singular heist because it's way more optimal. Cut as Carlton's, dirty as success. So we've only been playing Touch This Guy. It's just very, very boring. I've done this a couple times in Payday 3 already. I've grinded Rock the Cradle for a while because of the favor glitch. It's getting very repetitive and very boring. I've grinded No Rest for the Wicked 5 days straight, 13 hours a day, just to get the renown level to the maximum, which was very fucking boring. And now I've grinded 737, I think it was in the end, Touch the Skies in a row within this entire time span of Mask Mania. It was very boring. It's just how it is. I'm just built different, I guess, and I still do it because of the no reason, I guess, just so to try and keep myself entertained in a way. I'm basically completely done with the game. I've basically everything. But it is just a stupid concept. The majority of the people will not like this concept of just having to play the same heist or the same 2 heists over and over. It's stupid. But they figured that. So what now? Essentially, they're kind of like now completely making the mask, of course. The mask is still in production, like everything is in production. They mentioned that they're prototypes, if I recall at least. And they kind of like make a lessons learned stuff internally, which makes sense and whatsoever. And now we get to the stats. The stats for the chats. Here you can see the graphics. This is how like basically the different masks progressed. And you can see like here was the server maintenance. So this is kind of like just a flat bar. And here was the green one here. This one was the intention to earn double cash, but they fucked it up, and instead, the way they described it is a bit weird. They just called it a data error. What I think happened is essentially that they kind of like reduced the amount required to 50 billion. By accident, probably. I don't know, but that's my assumption, because the way that the bars here jumped is exactly double. Like if you look here, the blue one is here at like 15-ish million, then jumped to exactly 30. So that's how I think, or like what I think has happened in the background. But I didn't quite go into the details of it, I just call it the data here. And the second spike, they have actually not explained this, so I asked real quick. If you pay close attention here, because I figured that when I was calculating my stats, I have this error here in my stats. Essentially, I figured that you see that there's like a very, very, very small increase here. It's really hard to see. Maybe I can zoom in a bit. You can see that it jumps just a tad bit, right? Here's when they corrected it. So essentially the double cache earned here, that's when they added it here. So that's why we have the second spike. They essentially kind of like reintroduced the bug to fix it. That's kind of like what they did. I guess I can keep it this big. This is actually fine because that's just random space here. So that is what is not explained in this blog post. And then here is where the double cache started, like this whole area here. And this one here, Monday 000 is actually also incorrect. It's actually rather, well, it could be right. It's 80, no, it's shifted by just a tad bit. Just a very tad bit. Because it's essentially, it's like here-ish. It's shifted by like an hour or two. You will see that later in my stats. I don't have this data here, this one exactly. I don't have this point. But I have like a little later data and I have a little earlier data. So yeah, it kept going. Technically, it just didn't matter anymore. And the finish line is a bit earlier. So they earned like, I don't have data on this anymore, so I can't touch this. This is probably right though. But the ending line is kind of like here-ish, roughly just above 80 million. They showcased the number later. They're at like 81 million, the gearheads. And I can show you that it's incorrect. It's a bit earlier, but regardless. Like, it didn't really matter anyways. It didn't cause a difference in the end, so it doesn't really matter. So essentially, yeah, also this one. This is the thing that I actually asked Starbreeze about. This is the thing that I found here on Sunday. This is what's like, hey, hang on. This is just completely wrong. Something is completely off. And they did not tell me about it. This is the first time I saw it in this blog post. This was an adjustment for the loud heist completions gap. Essentially, they had like a filter in to filter out cheaters. And I assume they had that for stealth completions as well. I'm hoping, at least. By the looks of it, they did. They wanted to prevent cheaters from like earning trillions of cash in like 4-ish minutes or something. So their gap was too low and it filtered out too many who actually earn stuff properly. I can explain, I can give you a perfect example for that. Golden Shark, let me just pull up my data real quick because we tested it. Golden Shark, if going for all loot in stealth, is roughly 5 minutes on average, more or less. If you crack the code, then you can get it done in like 3 minutes 30 or so. But roughly it's like 5 minutes if you do it normally. And you earn 1.18 million. So roughly 1.2. If you do it in loud, full loud, you earn 1.35 million. And that takes like 10 minutes. What you can do, and what I think they have not considered, is you can trigger the alarm at the very end of the heist through like a camera or something and still escape with the van. Essentially meaning that you sort of have a stealth completion, but you triggered loud. This converts the money that you earn immediately to what the loud payout would be, aka this 3 minute 30 second run or 5 minutes on average would gain you $1.358 million in the game. And I think that is the reason why this happened. Not quite sure, I don't really have an example for the disco mollies, because Rock the Cradle and Under the Surface are both better technically. Well, actually, Rock the Cradle loud is pretty quick if you also can get the crypto wall, because there was a glitch for that, and I think they might have forgotten to account for that. I think they might have completely forgotten the crypto wallet. So that might have been the reason for the disco mollies too. The other two, the The gearheads, they only had Road Rage. Kotai's cartons only really had Touch the Sky, so it's like not really something to adjust for, really. They had like the bare numbers, and you couldn't really cheese a heist or convert the numbers. For instance, Touch the Sky in stealth is already worth way more than in loud, so that it makes no point to like trigger loud at the end. If you get what I mean. And Road Rage can only be done in loud. And probably not really many people played 99 boxes, where also stealth is better than loud. But for the sharks, I have a good example. For the disco mods, it's probably Rock the Cradle, but I'm not sure. I'm assuming people abuse the glitch to use the civilian to open the door, is my assumption. Which has been fixed, by the way. But yeah, just the explanation for this hiccup. And I think this is also kind of like what triggered them to actually... Because I confronted them with this, and they didn't give me an answer. But I think this is what kind of triggered them to actually make this blog post with the data that we now have. I don't think they would have published the data if it wasn't for that. I think. Not 100% sure. But I think so. And then they just explain the things that happened. That I basically just explained now. And now we have all of these numbers here. The total amount is 300 billion. Out of the 400 billion. So technically we were able to unlock 3 masks if you completely ignored one. But that didn't happen. 110 billion was earned on the Shakedown Shark. 81 billion was earned on the Gearhead Grudge. And again, these numbers are not 100% accurate, I can tell you that. They're slightly off a little bit. Cut Ice got 62 billion, Discamo is 53 billion. And they just keep showing numbers here. I guess I cannot really judge these numbers, they're just taken from like what we got up here. Based on like how long the event lasted. Again, they're probably slightly off once more. But roughly they give the gist. So like 2.6 million earned on average per played heist. This actually makes sense. Yeah, but 4 people it probably makes sense. I'm assuming they accounted for like a full gang squad sort of. Or 644,000 on average per minute. Which is still quite a lot. Did they just divide this by 4? No, not quite. But something like that. Then, your heisting fantasies. 160,000 have been beaten in loud and stealth. Which I guess makes roughly sense. I haven't really checked this, but I think this could make sense. Only 21,000 or 18% were in stealth. That initially caught me off guard. I thought it would be more. And then I was thinking, wait, that actually doesn't make any sense. Because, well, for the gearheads, most people probably played Road Rage, which is loud only. For Cut Dice, most people hopefully played Touch the Sky, which is stealth, the best way to do, but pretty difficult, so probably most of them turned out to be loud. For the Shakedown Sharks, I'm assuming most played Golden Shark, but figured out, hey, what if we complete it loud, we get more money, aka loud completion. And for the disco mod is, I'm assuming most people picked Under the Surface loud, because you can do that in a little over 3 minutes. So essentially, this number actually makes sense. And just the fact that, like, I feel like most people probably screw up stealth here and there and just still finish the heist, like random people, not really focused on the event and stuff, it kind of makes sense to have this number. Meaning that even if this would be like 50% would be stealth, it wouldn't really change too much of the numbers. It would really only affect Touch the Sky if we had more stealth completions there, because I think we really didn't. The average heist duration was 15-ish minutes, which just explains that most people have actually played loud. 16 minutes is really high. At least in my opinion. I'm not playing a single heist that goes over 10 minutes. Golden Shark, I think, is the only one that actually can potentially approach the 10 minutes if we start out immediately. And cook off if you go for 19 packs. But other than that, I don't see why this should be like 16 minutes. People are just very inefficient. I'm sorry I'm saying it. I'm just too good at the game, I guess. But literally, like, we just don't get 16 minutes completions. They're all sub 10, all of them. Then, this is actually kind of cool, the team efforts. They show the percentages of, like, how many people have been in a heist. So, 1 player was 16%, 2 players 24, 3 players 15, and actually 45% was 4 players, which is pretty cool. The weird thing is, like, 2 players 24%, which is kind of interesting. I was expecting more solo players. Tools of choice, well, these are the default weapons, so they're the highest automatically. And these were like the second ones, the SP Model 11 and the KU, which is kind of interesting. I was actually really expecting that the SA would be higher up, but I'm assuming it's probably pretty close. The SP model I can understand, a lot of people like it. Me personally, I don't. But hey, if that's the community's favorite, sure, go for it. And then I just go with the future events. So now we can swap. And trigger warning, this is going to be very bright at the beginning. So maybe don't get your eyes like flashed or something. I don't have a dark mode on this, so I'm sorry. This is my data that I managed to collect. So this is the updated progress chart that you can see. And as you can see, I even managed to find this. This was not represented in the previous chart that you potentially might have seen. But I also have like these gaps here. And unfortunately, nobody streamed here where the server maintenance was, because I was hoping to get that as well. And we'll get here to the ending bit at the very end and compare it real quick again of what Starbreeze has shown. But essentially, I've explained it before, is I've been looking through a bunch of streams, roughly 100 or so, from numerous different players, or streamers, I guess, who had the UI up that showed the percentages, and tried to fit it in the 15 minutes gap. That is also something that they actually haven't mentioned. On the website, they said it's going to update roughly every 10 minutes. Instead, it was 15 minutes. So we only had every 15 minutes an increase in percentage. They did explain that to me, so to get my numbers a bit more accurate. And I think they're pretty on point. And also, as you can see, I just have 100 here because the UI didn't go above 100%. So I couldn't really check this data, which was happening with the Shakedown Sharks, like after they had been completed. But let's just go through this real quick, and we'll get to the very ending bit here to see like where roughly when the event actually happened to end, because they told us it's happening on Sunday, 23:59, so basically 1 minute before midnight. And I'm living in the same time zone, Central European summertime, so I didn't have any struggles to like convert anything or stuff. I did have it when I was watching the streamers, of course. But since like the stream started overlapping a lot, it was relatively easy to sort it in and be pretty accurate with it. There's chances that these chunks here are like 15 minutes off. There's a chance. That's it though. There is not more than 15 minutes, like 15 minutes of a difference. But yeah, as you can see, you have a couple gaps here. And I guess let's just quickly scroll down. I marked this, obviously, the bugged double event that was on Wednesday for accounting for this server maintenance that was like here-ish, I think, more or less. And then once again, here's where the money got added, which they haven't explained on the blog post. But as if you look very close, the increase usually, for instance, here on the disco molis, the very right one is disco molis, it's usually like 0.13%, 0.12%. Up here it's like 0.7%, and then 0.7% again. So it's really not much. Or like, no, actually this is 0.13%. But it's like roughly 0.1% or something. And then all of a sudden, from like 10.86, they go to 12.1. They should much rather be in like 11.13 or something in that range. But they go to 12.1. This is the time when they actually compensated for the money here. Like they fixed this, basically. The money we earned in this time span, they added here. So they kind of like re-implemented the bug, as you can see. They're just suddenly at 20-ish%. And I actually think they even lost a tad bit. But in the long run, it still didn't matter. But they did add it here, and I had it confirmed by Starbreeze. Then here's just gaps and stuff that's probably not that interesting. It's like blah, blah, blah. And then here is the Sunday gap that I've seen. As you can see, it just suddenly jumped by like 3% here and by like 4% here. And that's, well, what they explained now in the blog post. This is like the part where they accounted for the loud completions that haven't been counted properly. And then finally, the very last thing, here's where Sunday ended. This should have been the final values, technically, or these ones. And as you can see, they're actually even below 80. So if you compare this back here again with what the final values were, right here, We can ignore Shakedown because I can't compare that, but let's take Gearhead Crutch. They hit 81 billion. I hit 78 billion. So there's definitely, they stopped the timer a little later. They gave us basically just a tad bit more time. And I think that was at 2 a.m. I think, because if you can see, they were already pretty close here. It's 81. Probably a bit later. 81.8. So it was probably actually even later. It was probably more like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., something like that. That's where they properly stopped. Unfortunately, nobody was really streaming here anymore. They kind of like all gave up except for Lucky, but Lucky didn't have the UA up. He only showed it a couple times, like at 1:30 he showed it. And then at the very end is that is the final value that was actually tracked. And I think that I don't know exactly. I think that was the final value that was posted by Payday Twitterman. So this was the final one that was tracked, and this one is the final one that was posted. So yeah, that's all I have. In my opinion, not a good event. I hope they do better next time. I really, really hope they do check how things worked a bit in Payday 2 and try to... I know they want to make a different game, but I don't want them to do the same mistakes again that Payday 2 has already done. And in the sense of events, I really hope that the next event is going to include something that actually changes something in the game to make it a bit more appealing to actually play these heists again, because they're like just a tad bit different. Could be a different enemy. Could be the piggy bank. I don't care. Give us the piggy bank again. It's great. Give us those buffs again. The same thing. I don't care. It's just great. Or make it different. But just they should just add something that changes it a little bit in the game to actually make it a bit more interesting. But that's all I have, I think. Feel free to throw in the comments if you have any questions, anything that I have unanswered or something. And I guess share your thoughts about the event. Bye.